fire fell from heaven. Burning sulfur rained down like a storm. 2 entire cities disappeared in a single day. Not from war, not from earthquake, not from any natural disaster. From the judgment of God. Sodom and Gomorrah. Names that echo through history as a warning. Cities so wicked, so depraved, so far gone, that God Himself destroyed them completely. Nothing remained but smoke and ashes and a wasteland that still bears witness to divine wrath thousands of years later. But here's the question we need to ask. What did they do to deserve this? What sins were so terrible that God sent fire from heaven? And are we seeing the same things in our world today? The answer might shock you. Because when you look at what the Bible actually says about Sodom's sins, when you compare them to modern Western society, the parallels are undeniable and terrifying. This is not just ancient history. This is a warning for today, a mirror held up to our culture, a prophetic picture of where we're heading if we don't turn back. Let me tell you the story, the whole story, and then let's talk about what it means for us right now. The story begins in Genesis chapter 18. Abraham, the friend of God, is sitting outside his tent when 3 visitors appear. They're angels, though Abraham doesn't realize it at first. He welcomes them with lavish hospitality, prepares a feast, serves them personally, and then, after the meal, the Lord reveals something to Abraham, something terrible, something that's about to happen. The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. Stop there for a moment. The outcry against these cities had reached heaven. Their sin was so grievous, so widespread, so public that it could not be ignored any longer. God was going to investigate, and if the reports were true, judgment would fall. Abraham knew what that meant. His nephew Lot lived in Sodom. Lot's entire family was there, and Abraham understood something crucial about God's character. God is just, but God is also merciful. So Abraham did something bold. Something that reveals the heart of intercessory prayer. He began to bargain with God. Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? And God answered, If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. But Abraham wasn't done. He pressed further. What about 45? God agreed. 40? Yes. 30? Yes. 20? Yes. Finally, Abraham asked, What if only 10 can be found there? And God said, For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. Think about this. God was willing to spare 2 entire cities of thousands of people if just 10 righteous individuals could be found. 10. That's the measure of God's mercy. He doesn't want to judge. He doesn't delight in destruction. He looks for any reason, any excuse to show mercy and spare the wicked. But what happened next reveals just how far gone these cities were. Because even 10 righteous people could not be found, the angels left Abraham and traveled to Sodom. They arrived in the evening, and Lot was sitting at the city gate. When he saw them, He rose to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. He urged them strongly to come to his house, to stay the night, to accept his hospitality. At first they declined, saying they would spend the night in the square. But Lot insisted. He knew what happened to strangers in Sodom at night. He knew the danger, so he persuaded them to come to his home. He prepared a meal for them. They ate. And then, before they went to bed, something horrific happened. Something that shows us exactly why God's judgment was about to fall. Genesis chapter 19, verse 4. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them." Read that again. All the men from every part of the city, both young and old. This wasn't a small group of troublemakers. This was the entire male population of the city. A mob demanding to gang rape Lot's guests. This is what Sodom had become. A place where homosexual violence was so normalized, so widespread, so accepted that the entire city participated without shame. Where strangers were not protected but victimized. Where hospitality was replaced with predation. Where evil was so pervasive that even the children were corrupted. Lot went outside to try to reason with them. He begged them not to do this wicked thing. He even offered his own daughters to the mob, trying to protect his guests. Think about that. The situation was so desperate, the evil so overwhelming, that Lot was willing to sacrifice his own children to try to prevent this atrocity. But the mob rejected his offer. They wanted the men, and they turned on Lot himself. "Get out of our way," they said. "This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They surged forward to break down the door. But the angels pulled Lot back inside and struck the mob with blindness. Even then, even blinded, the men kept groping for the door, so consumed by their evil desires that physical blindness couldn't stop them. The angels had seen enough. They said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place." The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. Lot went to his sons-in-law and warned them, but they thought he was joking. They couldn't believe judgment was coming. They were so accustomed to the culture around them, so desensitized to evil, that they couldn't imagine God would actually do anything about it. When morning came, the angels urged Lot to hurry. "Quick, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." But Lot hesitated. Even then, even knowing what was coming, he hesitated to leave. He had lived in Sodom so long, built a life there, had a position at the city gate. His daughters were engaged to men of the city. Leaving meant losing everything he'd worked for. So the angels grabbed him by the hand, grabbed his wife, grabbed his daughters, and they dragged them out of the city, physically pulled them to safety. Because Lot's attachment to Sodom was so strong that even the threat of divine judgment wasn't enough to make him leave willingly. When they had brought them out, one of the angels said, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away. Don't look back. Remember that. It's important." Lot and his family ran. And as the sun rose over the land, the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah. From the Lord out of the heavens, fire fell like rain. Sulfur exploded across the cities. The ground itself erupted in flames. The screams must have been horrific. Thousands of people, caught in their beds, in their homes, in their morning routines, suddenly engulfed in fire. No warning, no escape, no second chance. Just instant, overwhelming, inescapable judgment. The cities burned. The smoke rose. Everything and everyone in Sodom and Gomorrah was utterly destroyed. Not a single person survived except Lot and his daughters. Except for one other person. Lot's wife. Remember the warning? Don't look back. But as they fled, as the fire fell behind them, Lot's wife did exactly that. She looked back at Sodom. Maybe she was thinking of her home, her possessions, her friends, her life there. Maybe she was second-guessing the decision to leave. Maybe she didn't really believe God would destroy everything. Whatever her reason, she looked back, and she became a pillar of salt, frozen forever as a monument to the danger of loving the world more than obeying God. Jesus himself would later use her as a warning. In Luke chapter 17, verse 32, he simply says, "Remember Lot's wife." 3 words. A reminder that half-hearted obedience is still disobedience. That you cannot flee from sin while keeping one foot in it. That looking back longingly at what God has called you to leave will cost you everything. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and went to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah and saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. The cities were gone. Completely. Nothing remained but fire and smoke and death. The judgment had fallen exactly as God had warned. Now, let's talk about why this matters today. Because here's what most people don't understand about Sodom's sin. They think it was just about homosexuality. But the Bible gives us a fuller picture. Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 49 and 50 says this, "Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me." Did you catch that? Arrogant, overfed, unconcerned. They didn't help the poor. They were haughty. They did detestable things. Sodom's sins were multiple. Pride, excess, indifference to suffering, sexual perversion, inhospitality, violence, a complete rejection of God's moral order, a society that called evil good and good evil. Now look at our world today. Look at Western culture. Do you see the parallels? We live in the most prosperous societies in human history. Overfed? We have an obesity epidemic while throwing away 40% of our food. Arrogant? We've convinced ourselves we know better than God about gender, sexuality, marriage, and morality itself. Unconcerned about the poor? We spend more on entertainment and luxury than most nations spend on their entire economies, while millions starve. And the sexual perversion? It's not just accepted, it's celebrated, paraded, forced on our children. Anyone who objects is called hateful, bigoted, intolerant. The Pride Month, the rainbow flags everywhere, the relentless push to normalize what God calls an abomination. We're not just tolerating homosexuality, we're demanding everyone celebrate it. We're teaching it to children in schools. We're punishing those who refuse to participate. We've made it illegal in some places to even suggest that these desires can change or that living by biblical sexual ethics is good. And it's not stopping there. Now we have men claiming to be women, accessing women's bathrooms and locker rooms. We have children being told they can choose their gender. We have drag shows for kids. We have the sexualization of children becoming mainstream. Sound familiar? All the men from every part of the city, both young and old. Sodom had corrupted even its children. And we're doing the same thing. The violence, the mocking of anyone who stands for biblical truth, the aggressive hostility toward Christianity, the people pounding on the door, demanding access to what they want, refusing to take no for an answer. We see it in cancel culture, in the demonization of traditional values, in the way people lose their jobs, their reputations, their livelihoods, for simply saying that marriage is between a man and a woman, or that there are only two genders. This is Sodom. This is the spirit of Sodom alive and well in our time. And if we think God's judgment won't fall on us the way it fell on them, we're deceiving ourselves. Second, Peter chapter 2, verses 6 through 9, talks about this. God condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah by burning them to ashes and made them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly. An example, a warning, a preview of coming judgment. But here's what else that passage says. God rescued Lot, a righteous man, who was distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawless. Lot was righteous. He was distressed by what he saw. He lived in Sodom, but didn't participate in Sodom's sins. And God rescued him. There's hope in that. If you're feeling like you're surrounded by evil, like you're the only one who sees how far society has fallen, like you're swimming against the current of culture, you're not alone. You're in good company. And God knows who belongs to him. But here's the warning. Lot waited too long to leave. He got comfortable in Sodom. He built a life there. He compromised. He lived too close to evil for too long. And when judgment came, he lost everything. His home, his possessions, his sons, in-law, his wife, everything except his own life and his daughters. Don't be like Lot. Don't wait until the fire is falling to separate yourself from the world's evil. Don't get so comfortable in Sodom that the angels have to drag you out. And don't be like Lot's wife. Don't look back longingly at what God has called you to leave behind. Don't let your heart stay attached to a world that's under judgment. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, "Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Many enter the broad road. Few find the narrow path. The majority is not always right. In fact, in Sodom, the entire city was wrong. Every single person except one family. And even that family lost half its members. Following Jesus means going against the crowd. It means being willing to be called hateful for believing what the Bible says. It means being mocked for your sexual purity. It means being labeled as intolerant for refusing to celebrate what God calls sin. It means not being cool, not being popular, not being accepted by the culture around you. And you know what? That's okay. Because on the day fire falls from heaven, being cool won't matter. Being popular won't save you. Being accepted by a culture under judgment is not a blessing. It's a curse. The angel grabbed Lot by the hand and pulled him out because God was merciful. But he had to be dragged because he'd lived in Sodom too long. Don't let that be you. Don't get so comfortable in this world that when God calls you to leave something behind, you hesitate. The fire is coming. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's coming. God's patience with sexual immorality, with pride, with violence, with the corruption of children, it's not infinite. He delayed judgment for Abraham's sake to see if even 10 righteous people could be found. But when the time came, judgment fell. And it will fall again. Not with fire and sulfur next time, but with something worse, with eternal separation from God, with the lake of fire that burns forever. So, what do? How do you live in Sodom without becoming part of Sodom? First, you run to Christ. You make sure you're truly saved. You're not just religious, not just culturally Christian, but genuinely born again, sealed by the Holy Spirit, belonging to God. Second, you separate yourself from the world's evil. You don't participate. You don't celebrate what God condemns. You don't go along to get along. You draw lines. You make stands. You say no even when everyone else says yes. Third, you don't look back. You don't pine for the acceptance you used to have. You don't regret the pleasures you've given up. You don't secretly wish you could have one foot in the world and one foot with God. You're all in for Christ. Fourth, you prepare to be unpopular, to be misunderstood, to be called names, to lose friends, maybe even family. Jesus said if you follow him, you'll be hated by the world. Not might be, will be. But you know what? 1,000 years from now, when this world is gone and everyone who mocked you for your faith is facing God's judgment, you'll be glad you chose the narrow road. You'll be grateful you didn't blend in with Sodom. You'll rejoice that you let the angels pull you out, even when it meant leaving everything behind. Lot lost his wife because she looked back. Don't let that be your story. Don't lose your soul because you loved this world more than you loved God. The fire fell once. It's going to fall again, and when it does, there's no second chance, no do-overs, no opportunity to change your mind after the fact. Flee to Christ now, today, this moment. Let him pull you out of Sodom while there's still time. And don't look back. because God's judgment on sin is real. It's coming, and it's inescapable for those who reject Him. But His mercy is also real. It's available right now, and it's sufficient for anyone who will turn to Him. The choice is yours: Sodom or salvation, the broad road or the narrow way, the approval of the crowd or the approval of God. Choose wisely, choose quickly, choose Christ before the fire falls.